Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to this. I just wanted to say how much I appreciated this. We really have to do, oh, I should do all the things. So I'm gonna call the meeting to order. Glad you're all here. Any visitors?
No.
Okay. And we're gonna look at, anybody have any objection to the agenda, which is
No.
do some catch up and figure out where we are.
Motion to approve.
Oh my God. Any objections? It's Ann who's not here. Oh, just ask me, so you have to say
I know.
that 3 times.
Motion to approve, motion to approve.
And we had some minutes from the last meeting. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes? Okay, we'll put them off till the next meeting. We'll do them on the next meeting. Are there any public comments? She said dashing through this. Okay. What I wanted to do was, I was very concerned that there were a lot of moving parts that were happening sort of simultaneously. And I was hoping that we could just all get on the same page so that we can move forward. And that's all I want to do. Because at the next meeting, I'm going to begin with the end, which is the next meeting, we're going to have a consultant come in and assist us with the integration of the climate action plan into the comp plan. But I get back to that in just a second. I want to start with the climate action plan update. We had Cascadia Consulting is coming in and they're going to do a review of our report. And they are going to do it in lightning speed. I was sort of had my oh, I'm so cranky, it's going to take them 2 months and it's going to take them a month to do this. They have 4 people on their team. They have a project manager, they have an editorial review person, they have a graphic designer, they have an equity review, and they are going to hand us the product March 29th.
Wow.
So I think we ought to look at it before we go to the council, but and they are so.
Have they gotten our mascot?
Yes. So this is, we had a meet, Tracy and Mimi and I met with the team on Tuesday. And I just wanted to share with you what we had said. And if there are objections, this is a great time. It's not a good time on the 28th of March. But what we said was that we were looking for something that we can present to the council that's a foundational document and for our work in the development of the comp plan and in policy implementation moving forward. I think that's what we always said, but I just wanted to check that we had a bias towards implementation and action, that we wanted this more to focus on that one, focus that. This is a mix mash of things we agreed to, but they're going to look at it and we thought it would be better if we could watch them track changes so we would know what changes they're doing. And when we can do a different document that's the whole document without the, but it seems to me it's in our best interest to see what they're doing. And I don't mean me with the group. One of the things we had was the question about, and Tamara, this is really focused towards you because you've been the person who has raised up the issue of equity most often. Well, they're going to do an equity review, and they had 2 proposals of how to proceed. One was they go through the whole document, and then at the end we'd look at it. And the second one was that they would do an equity review throughout the and make recommendations throughout the document, and we would get to look at it as it went along. And I'm suggesting we choose the second, which is sort of we get to see things as they're going along. So the other thing is that we wanted to include specific legislative proposals and recommendations in our document, and that was one of the things they did ask, and I wanted to ask you, was they wanted to make sure, I wanted to see if we had a sense of what our key messages were. And that was a question they asked. What are the key messages? So I wanted to open that up for a minute and see if folks had some thoughts they wanted to share with this committee about what our key messages were.
Put that.
Linda, are you talking?
Just to myself, sorry.
Okay. I think urgency was a message.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
George. Urgency, of the issue. What were the,
actions required now, but that's kind of the same thing as urgency, but.
are there others?
I don't have a way to, I need help wordsmithing, but we can do useful, we can take useful actions. It's in our power. We have the power to make a difference.
Okay,
Power of the people.
What did, we have the power to,
Make a difference.
okay.
Or
When you say we, are you talking about the public, like that's the message we want to get across to people or to the legislature or to, who's we?
the we is
Maybe
all of
the
us as
city.
citizens. We the
Mhm.
people,
But also the government.
which is with the people.
how about that,
Oh,
residents of the government?
LFP can do a lot also.
Say what?
LFP can also do a lot.
Does that mean that,
As a municipality.
okay,
Yeah.
so I said residents and government have the power to make a difference?
I would say that as residents have the power to make the difference and then government, you know, but then in making a separate one, I mean, I don't know what we want to say about. Cause government has the power. We know that.
Government must make this a priority.
I
This
said
must be a
what?
government priority.
Yeah, government priority must be a priority for the government.
Okay.
And that leads into kind of making sure that we have somebody that has a position to continue implementation and everything.
Mhm.
We should make that in capital letters.
I mean, I think government priority, I mean, that is part of that, right? So, I
Yes.
mean, that is part of it. It needs to be, there was the phrase that the commissioner that we were talking to used? She didn't say priority, it was something about, I'm sure I wrote it down.
Could you
Something
speak up a
related
little,
to-
please?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry, the commissioner that we met with at Third Place Books, Mimi and Sarah and I, she had some key,
Similar.
Samara. She was using a key phrase about, I don't, maybe it was priority, you know, priority for the commissioners, but it was like, it was something, it was mostly related to like, what did they run on in terms of their platforms? And so how do we, but there's, what's the retreat that you do? You're setting your like new,
Council retreat on
is
the
it,
23rd.
is it priorities? What are the words that
Or
you?
imperatives.
Themes,
Goals.
goals.
Yeah, I mean, priorities is the word that we often use.
Okay,
Yeah.
so maybe priorities fine.
Okay.
I like imperative.
Anything else we need to think about here in terms of I'm sorry, Tamara, you're talking.
Oh, I was gonna say, instead of my priority, maybe imperative, and then also for like residents have the power to make a difference. So maybe just add something to the effect on it, like in a way that has minimal like impact to their, you know, like bottom line or lifestyle or just some, right? Because that's going to be the biggest pushback I think that we're going to get is that, yeah, of course I can make a difference. I could spend $1 million for an electric car and do all these retrofitting things. Like I know I could do that, but it's going to cost me a lot of money and be really complicated. And so that they can do it in a way that's not going, it's going to be, you know, financially viable for them. And yeah, some way to phrase that. But I wouldn't go too far with that too, because I think people need to make a difference and they need to see that this is a priority that they may need to spend money on or change their lifestyle in a way that, you know, if they can, they should.
How about in a way that we've talked about sort of incremental in that getting ready to get ready.
Mhm.
But as setting people up for incremental change. I don't know, that I'm not into incremental changing.
Mimi has her hand up. too.
Okay, maybe.
whenever we talk to the council members, we point out that there's two major threads. One is electrification, reducing our carbon footprint basically, and the other one is building resilience. So that is a key message, I think, of our CAP are those two threads.
Yes.
Um,
Resume. Right.
Okay. This is not, I don't mean to cut it off, but I want to honor your time. So please, we're going to be meeting with this group. If you have other ideas that you want to throw into this stew, we're going to pass this on to them. Yeah,
Just one last thing.
Yep.
I think this is really, to me, the bread and butter is that Lake Forest Park is freaking unique. And we really have a lot to save. So the urgency, it can all be tied into all these urgencies, but we are, this really has potential to be a resilient city based on the ecosystems we have intact and the environmental health that is, at this point in time, fairly decent compared to surrounding cities. Well,
I missed a word there, something that you had in there.
Ecosystems we have in place, he said, but you got it.
yeah, it's a common thread in
Intact ecosystem.
all successful environmental endeavors. When people find out they've got something, they fight for it. But if they don't know it's there, then they don't care.
So the key is here is a lot to say.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Does that trigger
Yeah,
anything?
or maybe like a lot of value to save.
Mhm.
I'm sorry, you want to add something to that, Tamara?
To say like a lot of value.
We had more value,
Assets,
more assets and values than most cities.
natural assets.
On point, did you all see the tree inventory has been released?
Is this the one that was passed around earlier?
$550 million in assets in just the forest.
We've increased too, right, since the last time? Didn't I get that from the previous?
Nobody had tried to do an environmental services analysis.
Oh, that's right. But we have increased our tree canopy.
Yeah,
Right,
a smidge.
just over 50%.
Yeah.
It's good, amazing. Somebody said best in the county, best in the, maybe best in the
There we go.
state,
I'm sure it's best. in the
among
county.
the best in the state for sure.
Let's just say the best.
Okay. So again, if you have things that come to you in the night, or whenever things come to you, just throw me a note and we'll add it to this list. What we do need is we're gonna have three more meetings, 2 or 3 more meetings in March during the day. And they can have 4 people in it. And Mimi has volunteered and I've volunteered and Tracy doesn't count for the 4, doesn't count for the 4, right?
That's a theme.
So, and we're thinking about Tuesday mornings because that was the suggestion that the team had, but we can change that if people. So I'm wondering if there's somebody who would, 2 people who would like to join us in those meetings.
Every Tuesday morning.
No,
we can
every other
do-
week.
Yeah, we'll have to look at all of our schedules and then we'll have to do it.
Okay. Apparently I got that wrong. So
I have every Tuesday morning, I am busy.
you're what?
I have meetings every Tuesday morning till noon in March.
Okay. All right. What, and the other thing is, Tamara, again, I'm talking with you, when they do the environmental review, we're gonna change the schedule so you can come to that meeting. Oh, boy, she talking.
No. When is it? March 29th?
We
I don't
go-
know when it will be, Tamara, I don't
Okay.
know yet, but when it is,
Okay.
yes. They're between now and the 29th of March.
If it's late morning, I can.
As I say, if you can switch it to an afternoon, I can't do next week, but I could do any of the following three.
Yeah, I
weeks.
can do Tuesday.
If it's an afternoon,
All right, we'll do this Google.
after 1 o'clock.
we'll do the Google thing with the,
Okay.
with adding Brian and Jessica.
Okay.
And, and if anybody feels compelled to come to those meetings, let us know and we'll figure it out. I mean, we'll either have to have a special meeting or somebody will have to step away. But we can make that happen. So the other thing I want to say is that I'm sort of drawing a line under there. I was trying to catch you up to where we are. What we're doing at our next meeting is Christina, Christina something or another, who is a consultant from Olympia, and who's been working with the comprehensive plan as their consultant, is going to come to our meeting. And she is going to help us by, I believe, actually having recommendations of how we take what we've already done and integrate it into the comp plan. And what I want to do is just do a quick overview of what the comp plan is, because some of you I know haven't had sort of that experience, so that when she comes, we'll be ready to go. So every 10 years, all of the cities in King County have to revise their comp plan. Ours, the Lake Forest Park one, is due to be completed and revised and passed by the council and tied up in a bow by the end of December 2024. And it's a state mandate. It says you have to do that. So you have a set of state requirements. And embedded in that, you have a set of county requirements called the King County Plan, King County, I don't know, some set of plans that they have that require cities to meet. So those are our housing targets. There's something called Vision 2050, which is talks about transportation requirements, and the city has to meet those goals set out by the state and by the county and by others. So in part so that, you know, you're driving on a road in Lake Forest Park and there's a road in Montlake Terrace that meets it. Those are a piece of the planning policies. It says roads will connect with each other. Mine is saying connecting.
Out. You're something wrong with your Wi-Fi adapter, but
Okay.
try it again.
Can you put it up now?
Oh.
Okay, well, I'm gonna talk and I just want you to know that I have the most fabulous PowerPoint here, and I'm really sorry you couldn't see. So oh, now I can't even see my own. Okay, so the planning committee.
Can you share your screen?
So, Sarah, just to clarify, it is the King County countywide planning policies,
Thank you.
which are also embedded inside of something called Puget Sound Regional Council Vision 2050.
Yes, so it's not like we get to do whatever we want, that's all. So the planning commission is currently doing this. They're taking this is a picture of the 2015 comprehensive plan, and the planning commission is taking element by element and looking at it and making recommendations. And these are the elements that are in a comprehensive plan. So they're taking land use and they're saying, what are the countywide planning policy requirements for us? What are the transportation requirements for us? How do we make that happen? And it's important to say that a comprehensive plan has no doingness about it. It has, this is where we want to go. It's a policy framework and not a practical framework. But it's critical for the city to get grants to move forward, because they say, these are our policies. So it might be our policy is to retain tree cover. Then you go to the Arbor Foundation and you say, I want 1 million trees for Lake Forest Park. And you say, we're doing that because it's in our policy document that says we want to increase trees. So in each of these, until quite recently, there's a piece I'm a little, until recently, this last one, this climate one, was we were going to take what we had done and create a climate element. But that was so yesterday. We're now gonna take our. Well, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna hold that thought. I just want to show you, this is what the make it vote.
Mhm.
How do I? Now, we're really screwed. I was trying to make it bigger, and look what I. In each of the elements, so and this one is, they have an introduction, and then they have a goal, and then they have policies. And
Click on, see where it says up at top, it says end tips, and then it says use slideshow. Click to use slideshow.
So each of these, so they have, they have an introduction, they talk about Lake Forest Park, they do some stuff about demographics and who we are. And then in each unit, they have land use, they talk about what kind of land we have and how much is encumbered by steep slopes and water, and then have some goals and policies for moving forward. And this is an example of because I think it's important that the words they use are like promote, provide, an adequate supply, provide, consider, promote, encourage. That's the policy framework language. It doesn't set out a specific task, it creates the framework for subsequent tasks. Okay, so now what, right? So that at our next climate action committee meeting, Christina Hayward is going to provide us with a framework for integrating our work into the existing elements. And the reason she's doing that is because the grant that came through, the climate planning grant that the city got for $500,000, is to do significant work on the climate elements, additional research. So my favorite example is the one Anne uses, which says we could never get where the gas lines are because they thought we were a terrorist group looking for that, but they could probably give it to the consultants. So we would know where gas lines are and, maybe we do a neighborhood by neighborhood talk about heat pumps. So she's going to come in and do that. So she's going to talk about how we take some of our existing things, for example, Brian, and shove them into environment, and which we have a lot of stuff on transportation and how we put them in there.
I'd say we have a lot of our vision and goals were kind of line up with a lot of this.
I think so. I don't think it's,
We have to condense it.
yes, and the good news is I think she's going to do that.
Oh. I like it when you see it work.
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna go back here. I just want to, this is what the planning grant, this is a valuable lesson. Nothing moves quickly. That's my lesson. So they got the planning grant, and it's gonna approximately run for 18 months. The city council has accepted the grant. That's the first step. So they got offered it and they said they'd take it. But then the city has to prepare a request for proposals for a consultant. They have to post it. They have to look at the, review the applications so that, and that time constraint is prescribed by either policy or practice with the city. So they can't skip over that. They have to leave it out for a certain number of days. They have to have a certain number of days for review. Once the city team will review the applications and recommend one of the proposals, one of the teams, and then the city has to review the proposal, and they can actually tweak. At this point, they could tweak the contract. They could send it back and say, we don't like what you did here, and then it's another 2 weeks. And then they approve it, and then the contract is signed and prepared, and then this process begins to go forward. In the Google Docs, there is a scope of work, but everybody who I've talked to says that's not That's not what they're gonna do. It's a piece of what they're gonna do. And I've heard from people say, push for implementation in this grant. And the people I've talked to, I said, you know, we're really concerned about implementation. I don't know if, like, what the parameters of the grant are.
So the scope of work is the scope of work that was submitted to get the grant?
Yes,
Well, usually you have to adhere to that scope of work unless you actually specifically request for a change of the scope of work to the granting agency.
yes,
So,
Which is very broad.
yeah, they're very broad.
oh,
You,
okay,
this will all go towards the,
Yeah, start line.
the climate element of the comprehensive plan that will be adopted after the comprehensive plans.
That's the last step, is this, then there would be, so the council is gonna accept the comprehensive plan, and then they're gonna have once this study this climate planning grant is done, there'll be an amendment to the comp plan, which has its own special climate element. Okay.
well done, Sarah.
So I just want to say, the other thing is, I'm not going to tell you, and so there we are. It's going to be very exciting. But I thought if we do know what a comp plan was, that we're going to have a hard time with Christina. So the framework she's going to bring to him, I don't know what she's going to actually bring. But I also just want to throw out there that we have a lot of things too that are coming up, and I just wanted to make a list of them for you. Somebody was watching our videos, and he called and said, could he have a meeting with me? And so Mimi and I went to a meeting, and the videos of our meeting.
Oh, okay.
And he was concerned, he had done a Freedom of Information request for the odor control unit underneath my house. And it turns out it's pumping out methane
Your house?
underneath it's a bright water odor control unit. So I
So
wrote,
what? Oh, bright water.
bright water. So I wrote Dombowski and said, gosh, this shouldn't happen. And he wrote back and said, okay, well, let's look into it. So there's a methane thing we're working on. This individual, his name is Matt Muhlenberg, and he and his family have been active around the city for quite some time. He's on the fish thing, his wife or his mother-in-law, somebody was on the Streamkeeper a while ago. He's also interested in doing some simulation work with climate. And so we're setting up a meeting with the library to see if the library would run a series of climate programs as part of their outreach.
So
We
simulation, you're not talking about computer simulation?
No, it's as I understand it, it's a card game. You get cards, and it's, how many of you have been to those budget things where you say you have $100 million to do the budget of the city, and you have to say, well, I want to hire somebody, and then you have to move money around. I think it's like that.
It's like a game.
Maybe
There's two things that he has to offer. One is Climate Frisk. Some of you may have heard of that. That is a card game where you kind of, it's a way to help everyone understand how things are connected, from the climate system itself to the impacts of climate to transportation. And it's a really nice tool that he's being trained to use. The other tool is
What's the second word? Climate what? What was it called?
Fresk or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but Fresk, Fresk. You'll get close if you Google that. The other one is actually a simulation. Dana and I looked at it as part of, we were going to use it for class. It's really kind of complicated in the back end, so it takes a lot of work to understand it, but it's what MIT created a model, and it's you can put in all kinds of strategies for changing how you electrify things, changing fuel sources, changing how you live, and seeing what the impact is down the line, how that impacts temperature, global temperature, etc. And so that's really a tool that was designed initially to help explain to politicians it helped them understand the scope of the problem and how to deal with it. So he has training in both of those as part of this converting business people into climate people. program that he's part of. Again, I didn't write down the name of that program, but it sounds like an awesome program. So he wants audiences. So we're trying to help him find the right audiences, and he knows a lot about a lot of things related to electrification and cars. So he's a really good resource.
And we're moving towards easy, so if the library would pick it up, that'd be a good thing. The other thing is, on March 30th is the Green Fair that we're going to. And we're thinking that we, Dana and Linda and I, thought we'd sort of focus on easy things to do, and we're working on that. But we are gonna need people to attend that. It's from 10 to 2 on the 30th, so I'm just putting that out there. We'll do it at our next meeting. But
If you guys want anything, we have to order soon.
okay, one of the things I'm looking at is those washing machine sheets. I asked.
I have them. I have a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, but I do too, but I don't know how to give them away, which I sent, I'm asked for how to do wholesale of those.
The pencils were a hit last year, Sarah.
Yeah, pencils. Okay. We'll look at that.
Do they do samples? So it'd be nice if they had like packaged
Yeah, small,
samples.
yeah, because I've given them away to people, but I don't know how to do it in a group. That's what I wrote them and asked them, and they said they would send me to their warehouse person. The other thing is that, we're gonna have a town hall meeting on climate with the state legislators on April 13th. And we're gonna need a moderator. I'm looking at you, Brian. I don't know, you wanna be a moderator for state legislators Saturday morning? I just think about it. I was thinking those teachers, you know, got up there and did things. Let's see, the book club, we had a book club meeting. It was a small meeting, but it was fabulous, and we encourage you to come to the next one. We're still reading the poetry Dear Human, On the Edge of Time, and we're meeting on the last Wednesday of the month. And you really don't have to read the whole book, you have to read one poem. You don't even have to do that, you could read it with us. We were reading them out loud. It turns out when you English majors know this, when you read things out loud, it changes. And we found that to be true. So I encourage you to come. And the other thing is it's an easy way. I think a piece of what all of these outreaches are about is having conversations with people. And this is an easy way to have a conversation with people. And so, you can invite, and this poetry book is nice because you don't have to read the whole thing. You can just read a piece of it or come there. Anyway, I encourage you.
When are those meetings again?
It's the last Wednesday of the month at 5:30 at the Commons. Okay, the last is, what? The work plan wasn't at the last meeting, so I'm presenting it at March 7th. Anybody wants to come to the council meeting is welcome to come. And the other is, I'm going to send you, this is more than you want to know about my personal life, but I buy a table at the Commons and I'd like you all to be my guest. So I'm going to send you a note about that. That's what it is. It's so, and I forget when the Commons breakfast is, but it's soon. April 4th.
Yeah.
So I'll send that out to you, and just, that's what it is. Okay. That, I believe. I think that's the end of the catch up. So I wanted it to be quick, but I felt like all this had to happen and that our meeting was going to be full. So anything else for the good of the order? Yeah.
So I had a meeting with a guy by the name of Garong, and I don't know if he's just a one-name guy or if he's basically he's cagey with his first name, but he's a friend of Craig Reynolds, who's a Mercer Island City Council member. And Garong is the fellow that I just been telling you guys about. He has like a climate dashboard for inventorying a city's greenhouse gas emissions. And so I was just going to go, or it's a Zoom call. I was just going to go and basically find out what it was about. I was doing this on Monday, morning. Where is it? Jeez, sorry. So if anybody wants to come along, I'm sure they don't mind having more people in the audience. So let me know.
Is it is it essentially you two having a conversation?
No, in fact, Pam Moore from Sammamish is also coming, she's a council member there. So this is kind of like demoing essentially what he's come up with. So it's a homegrown kind of inventory. And we've been talking about how do we assess our progress? This might be a thing. So it's more exploratory than anything else. We're not committed to anything, so.
Can you send an invitation out?
Sure.
I don't know if anybody wants to go. But can you just send the invitation if people go or not?
Yeah, I was just looking for it, but he hasn't sent it to me yet,
Okay.
so once that happens.
So watch out for it.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else? I know some of you have to get out of here. Dana,
I just had a quick question about how, so is Cascadia making a Google Doc that we are going to be able to see as it goes along? Is that what you were talking about earlier? Wait, or was it with the other?
yeah, Corey said yes.
So we
I
just,
didn't-
we can go in and see it at any time during that month and, or however long they're working on it?
You know, I don't know the answer to that, Dana, but I'm gonna find out. I think it's a good question.
They will work on stuff and then they'll get ready sections for you guys to take a look at, review, and then we'll get back input to them and then they will incorporate that input. So there will be a Google Doc, but like I'll be coordinating, hey, this section's ready to go look at, give us your input, and then we'll turn it around. So it'll probably be fast turnarounds for the next month, but like, try to give you a couple days.
Are there other questions? Okay, if you think about questions and you have anything, just shoot me an email and I'll try and answer. Then we're gonna get to see each other on Tuesday, right? For our regular meeting. A regular climate action committee meeting. Okay. Anything else? Thank you. Thank you.